celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
We're getting a lot of stretchers used this summer. As we get started on this edition of the Wrestling is Real podcast, talking about Cody Rhodes, talking about CM Punk, the injuries that are being afflicted in their action in some very high-profile shows that they just had. When it comes to Cody Rhodes working Hell in a Cell and being the headliner on that show, when it comes to CM Punk headlining Double or Nothing against Hangman Adam Page and winning the AEW World title, only to go on the Dynamite after and get hurt in a fluke going into the stands. Cody Rhodes with a torn pectoral muscle leading up to the match, and still works the match valiantly, which we talked about a lot this past Sunday right here, WrestlingIsReal.com. Look for the post show that I did for Hell in a Cell and for NXT in Your House. I did that over the weekend. So a couple days we're back on here, back in front of the mic, talking once again about wrestling. This is episode number 697. There's just a whole lot of injuries, and it's a comparison of what both the WWE and AEW are doing to handle the situation based on what they have, what they can use at their disposal in terms of matches, in terms of booking, in terms of who they have available. With WWE, this is a pretty common story. When they have people that are injured, well, you take Edge and you make him a babyface. And you quickly drop the Judgment Day storyline where he started as the leader of the group, and all of a sudden we're already changing leaders. John Cena now rumored to be coming back very shortly. He wants to make a run over the summer, which that could take the place for Cody Rhodes, who will not be back for a while. But both CM Punk and Cody Rhodes have both had surgery to repair their afflictions, their injuries. Well, CM Punk was his lower leg, and for Cody Rhodes, the torn pectoral muscle. Torn off the tendon, right? And so off the bone. I'm still amazed that he was able to do what he did. So you have that. And then you have things where who is available to go ahead and work said shows coming up? When you got Forbidden Door coming up at the end of the month. And the problem is you have Adam Cole that is most likely injured. Bryan Danielson that is injured with no CM Punk. And when you look at not just injuries for Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns now is being announced that he is no longer booked for the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. He's not doing anything on Money in the Bank. Which I can understand it because of the fact that they're not going to have the show at Allegiant Stadium as originally planned, because they're going up head-to-head to the UFC, which is just not a good idea. Better if they're going to go and work their show, they're going to want to go and compete. They can go and take care of the MGM Grand Garden Arena and fill that up, while UFC does, I guess, what, Mandalay Bay? I forget which, or T-Mobile Arena they're doing. That's right. So that's what they're going to do. It's all these different scenarios that are going on. We're going to go into what happened here with everything, because that's a lot of main event talent going down. But AEW does a pretty good job on how they're going to handle things, because for the Forbidden Door, they might have had a couple of things planned, but they've quickly changed things up. This Dynamite, you had a whole lot of moving around of pieces and parts to get Forbidden Door ready. Of course, you were going to have the inclusion of New Japan stars coming into AEW to kind of invade leading up to the pay-per-view, which they did with Will Ospreay and the Global Empire. You have that. You know that we're going to eventually, who knows if we're going to see Okada yet, but we know that Adam Page wants to go after the IWGP World Championship over there. Talking about that. We'll talk about that all and some of the Dynamite stuff that's going on, because it's all leading up to Forbidden Door. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But let's get to the injuries themselves and where things are now with both stars, and what the company's doing to kind of work out these things going on. Well, number one, we know that Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, their feud will not end. It will continue. It's not going away. So Monday night, we had an in-ring promo segment, and Rose surprisingly teased he would enter the Money in the Bank ladder match next month. After he gets surgery for his torn pec, Seth Rollins interrupts and praised Rhodes for the guts he showed last night. And Rollins said Dusty's very proud of his baby boy right now, shook his hand, walked off, and then Cody would be attacked in the stage area. And this is where Cody is being written off TV until he's cleared to wrestle again. Done and gone. That's it. There is some news coming out that has talked about what Cody Rhodes' injury, how the company knew about it, and where they come up with things. They were not aware of what was going on. So it wasn't until the pre-show we knew about the injury. Dave Meltzer was the first to report that Rhodes was injured with a torn pectoral muscle. And he was replaced at Saturday's house show in the main event by Drew McIntyre. And after a triple threat match at that house show, Rhodes did come out to chase Rollins around the ring and to the back. So Fightful Select reported in his Fightful backstage report that WWE was surprised that word of his injury got out when it did. It was only because only a certain number of people knew about it. Yeah, it's like a sieve. People just go ahead and learn about this stuff, and people can't help themselves but go ahead and start gossiping and start saying things in the back. So as for the injury and the surgery, the plan was that Cody would get surgery done this week. And that is going to happen Thursday as we record this show. He did tell fans in attendance at Hell in a Cell he was going to address the injury on Monday Night Raw. Recovery time is usually several months, but everyone is different. Of those that have had this injury, Triple H suffered this and was out for 5 months. Elias was out for 5 months. John Cena, less than 4 months. But, of course, John Cena comes back early from injuries. So if you put that together, you're not going to bring him back for Survivor Series. You're going to wait till the Rumble. And that's when you bring him back, if anything. Bring him back for WrestleMania season, which is fine. I mean, because what's going to happen is once you get to here, where was Cody going to go? Like, I don't think he was going to go after the world title yet, but you could very well let Roman hold on to both belts for a while. If Drew's going to go after him, okay. But I think that Cody, living the legacy of his father, and us getting Roman versus Cody, and by that point, maybe we get the match done where Roman might not have both belts. He might only hold on to the Universal title, and then that's the title that's up on the line, because somewhere, somehow, I would imagine a Money in the Bank briefcase is going to get cashed in on Roman, and one of those belts are going to be on the line, and that'll be it. Because what they haven't talked about for Money in the Bank is, because Roman Reigns is champion of both belts, I mean, the person that's going to go ahead and cash in that briefcase, if it's a all of a sudden cash in, he has to say, which title are you going for? Because you just can't do the Money in the Bank unless they make the stipulation that the Money in the Bank briefcase is for the undisputed title. Now, that'd be interesting to me. I don't think they would, depending on who wins that match. If you're making that match and you're keeping it where Roman is going to hold on to that belt, and by the way, if he's not going to be working that night, if he's not showing up, there will be no cash in that night. We'd have to wait and see what happens, I guess, Friday night after Money in the Bank. If there's any chance of a cash in, anything like that, any kind of fluke kind of thing going on. But we won't know yet. And I don't know what to think about that when you look at where they need to go and get things started with this pay-per-view and what's going to be scheduled. Because so far, if I'm correct, I don't think they have anything scheduled. Well, they did put Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. That is set up now for the Raw Women's title. That is a match scheduled for Money in the Bank. That's the only match scheduled. So they gave us that. That gave us something. Cody dropping off of TV. That was something that was notable. And now I don't know what we do. Oh, by the way, I just noticed this as well. Money in the Bank is actually going to be at 6 o'clock. Did anybody know this yet? According to what I'm seeing here on Fightful.com, the time for the show is 3 o'clock local time, Vegas, 6 p.m. Eastern. And this is so they do not conflict with the UFC's main card, which usually starts around 10. That's probably the plan. Or really when the UFC's show starts up around 9 o'clock. So if you want to go to both, they can do that. And to take away some of the, where you'll have that going on and it will not have any issues where UFC gets kind of taken away. You're kind of giving people the room to go ahead and go to both, which is good. I'm curious about what people would go to both. But then I can understand if they go to wrestling and they go to UFC after that, just catch the main card, not the undercard, but the main card. What do you want to do with that? So like I said, Roman Reigns is not booked for Money in the Bank. With that said, there's a lot of things they could be doing right now to cover up the fact that you do not have anything to go on with replacing Cody. Where does Seth go? And who takes that main event spot going into Money in the Bank? Because when you have that main event spot, if you're not getting Roman out there, you're not going to have Cody out there. What's your main event? Just the match itself? I guess that's what it's going to have to be. You'll have 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, sure, but you're not even going to have Roman Reigns there to confront whoever gets the briefcase, because it's going to be somebody going after him anyway. And at this point, Roman Reigns' next undisputed Universal title defense is undecided still. So we don't know what they're going to do with that yet. So what are they going to do with Cody? Let's focus on that. Where do things go post Cody right now? Cody was locked into a lot of plans. We know that. Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrasso first reported that Roman Reigns will not be at the show. Dave Meltzer confirmed. Plans were scrapped once they moved the show from Raider Stadium, Allegiant Stadium to T-Mobile Arena. Well, actually, it's MGM Grand Garden. Let's make that clear, because the UFC show will be at T-Mobile Arena. But this report says what it says. Now, Reigns was scheduled to wrestle Riddle at Money in the Bank, Randy Orton at SummerSlam, and Drew McIntyre at Clash at the Castle. Matches with McIntyre is pretty much confirmed because McIntyre laid down the challenge last Friday for the match in September. Orton and Reigns still appears to be on the match, but it will take it a place in a different show. Now, Money in the Bank, regardless if it's no longer a stadium show, this is still a show that they want to make as now a Big 5 show. This is supposed to be at the level of the other 4 major pay-per-views. That's what Money in the Bank is now. With that said, even if they're not running it in a stadium, they get the pressure of not having to fill that arena because of whatever mistake this was, that people didn't realize that UFC's running concurrently in the same city again. Okay, when you're doing Vegas, how about making sure that you get, and I understand Nick Khan, he probably got the deal to get the stadium, get that, because there was nobody was occupying it, and on top of that, maybe there was still nothing at MGM Grand Garden in the first place. Like, you have venues, if you can run a show, and it's not really going to be concurrent, you can do that. But when WWE is going to do that, they have to, it's kind of a respect thing where they're not going to be able to compete direct with another show going on at the same time. Like, July 4th weekend's great. They're going to have a big show. But for them, they were not going to go ahead and get the kind of bodies with UFC in town to fill up Allegiant Stadium. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. SummerSlam was a different story because that was a boxing match, and those boxing matches run late. And SummerSlam started early. Same thing here. You just don't, it's just a traditional UFC show, but you don't want to go up against UFC. And I'm not even sure what UFC show is going to be coming up now that is next and what's on the main card. Oh, here we go. Looking at ESPN, UFC 276, Adesanya versus Cannonier. I don't know the names, and I really have not followed along with the UFC in a while, but still, it is T-Mobile Arena, and that card starts at 6 p.m. Pacific as well. They're going to run head-to-head. I'm curious what that's going to look like. But it looks like Money in the Bank, they already had a certain amount of tickets sold, so they should be all right. Now, Cody Rhodes was pushed as a top star for the show in advertising, and teasing can still be involved. But he's getting surgery. That's out. And as we know, Roman Reigns' new contract, he can very much exercise how many matches he has to wrestle. He can wrestle less on house shows, TV, and pay-per-views. But Money in the Bank needs something here. I mean, if you're just going to have the Money in the Bank ladder matches and no major titles, because we don't know if the Usos are going to take on anybody. We don't know if they're going to defend those belts against anyone either. I mean, they did defend it on Monday night against the Street Profits. Or was that a championship contenders match, right? Yeah, that's what it was. So we don't know what they're going to do. And then you take Edge out of the mix because he could have very well been in the Money in the Bank ladder match or in some featured match on the card as a draw, but he's not there either. That's pretty big names to drop off. And this is the constant problem that they have because there's such a light roster now, and of course they don't build new stars. Now, Hell in the Cell was a very good pay-per-view. We all say that was true. But they don't have anything right now in terms of star power. Like, if you took those two names out of here now, what are you going to do next? Now, Edge wasn't in the match with Judgment in the first place, but he was a focal fixture in there. And then where everything led to his being taken out in storyline to be replaced by Finn Balor, it's important to go and see where it's going to go there. But Money in the Bank, they're going to have people that will be in the match. Riddle can be in it, Drew McIntyre. I mean, you're going to have your 6 to 8 names they're going to drop into that match. Same thing for the women. Okay. And on the SmackDown Women's title, we don't know who Ronda's going to take on. I mean, she already went ahead and they put something together where it was Raquel. Like, I mean, really, there's a weakness on that other side of that roster with no Naomi and no Sasha Banks because of their mutiny, basically. Justified or not. We have not talked about it because we still haven't heard anything from the two of them regarding what's going on. But that's a weak roster right now on the SmackDown side. So Ronda doesn't have anybody at the moment that's really up there at the level. Is it Natalya? Is it Aaliyah? Is it Shotzi? You gotta ask, is it Xia Li? Whew. You're not giving me any names that are really, rolling off the tongue as like bona fide main eventers. They just don't have it. Not right now. With that said, we don't know what they're going to do with Money in the Bank and what you do to work around anything. Because on top of that, without any Roman Reigns, would Brock Lesnar be coming back at some point? Well, last week, about a week and a half ago, we also talked about where Brock Lesnar was also not being promoted for Money in the Bank. Nothing about him at all. And Meltzer talked back after Memorial Day that everything regarding Reigns and Lesnar for Money in the Bank is up in the air right now. Riddle and Reigns could still happen, but no word on what's next for Lesnar. He was originally booked for the show because it would be a stadium show, but he's no longer going to work that show. So what do you do next? As we learn, okay, no Reigns, no Lesnar, and Riddle and Reigns will happen on a later date. But they've already kind of set it up. So what do you do now? I mean, I think what you do with the Money in the Bank, with the situation that you have, is you focus on the fact that Money in the Bank, it needs to be that the winner gets to cash in as long as Roman Reigns holds both titles, that the winner of that Money in the Bank briefcase, if they pin Roman Reigns with a cash in of that Money in the Bank briefcase, whether in a straight up match or, they just an instant match to just go ahead where they just decide to cash in, that Roman Reigns needs to be losing both belts. That both belts are on the line if that briefcase is cashed in. They should actually even do it where they put the contract in. If Roman Reigns is still, or someone else is still undisputed champion, they should put that in contract. And then you make it where you make that match mean even more, and that becomes your main event because now it just matters so much more. And you can make a star that night. You can make somebody that is a legitimate opponent for Roman Reigns, and you could find the opponent that could beat him down the line at SummerSlam. Or you wait until next year. But I think you don't, because I think you wait for Cody. What has to happen here is if you're not going to have, if Cody Rhodes is probably the most likely person that could take either of those belts off of Roman Reigns, who's next? Drew McIntyre? Riddle? No. There's nobody feasible right now that I think that the company would put either belt right now. Like, whoever gets to take Roman Reigns down and beat him after all these months, after all this, a couple of years now, somebody important has to be distinctive to win that. I would think it'd be a younger star, not somebody that's been established for a long time. I mean, do you give that to a Drew McIntyre? I don't know. He's already been up there at the top. There is nobody they have that's new that could work their way up there. But in this Money in the Bank ladder match, look, you got Seth that could be in it. You got Kevin Owens. You could drop Sami Zayn into it. You could drop Drew McIntyre. You could drop Bobby Lashley if you want in there, unless he's still working with Omos. But now they already set things up with Bobby Lashley. Like, Bobby Lashley is already being set up for another feud for whatever it is. I'm trying to think, because it can also change things up too. My thing is, I just don't know, when they decided to set up a couple new feuds, were these already in the plans? And with Cody being out, with no Reigns, no Lesnar coming at the Money in the Bank, do plans subject to change? I don't know yet. But I'd love to get an answer for it. Like, I know they're going to have Lashley doing something else, most likely. But I don't know what you do yet. I mean, Omos needs something to do. Bobby Lashley needs something to do. Where do you go next? And there are so many guys that they have right now on the men's side that are nowhere close to being ready for something. Well, I mean, now, they've definitely given a push on the single side to Riddle. Is he ready for something like that? I mean, look, you could do it. I think people will be really fascinated to see Riddle, a real babyface that will be made serious right now, because they're starting to do it with him with Roman Reigns, where he could absolutely go ahead and go after the title and win. The other thing is, does Randy Orton need to be brought back up and seasoned up to be a big singles push again? Because I'm trying to think of, give me some reasonable opponents for Roman Reigns to where we could find somebody that legitimately could take the belt off of him. We already know they're running out of people. The one guy that I thought of anybody that could have been that person to take the belts off of him is Cody Rhodes. And we won't get anything like that until WrestleMania season. It's the risk they take. But this is the one thing that everybody I want to think about, because other than that, yeah, we just wait for it. We see what they're going to do after that. But the injury greatly changes plans. And so if John Cena now has to come back, if Randy Orton has to be brought up to a certain level again, if you're going to let Riddle get out there, I mean, who else do you have that can be legitimately really can be heated right back up pretty quickly to get back into the mix? Randy Orton's one of those guys. John Cena just coming right back all of a sudden would be a huge thing. Like, Cena's the only guy. Well, we haven't seen him come back yet. So if Cena could come back, he could take on Reigns for both belts. Make that the SummerSlam match. If that's the case, that buys them some time until SummerSlam. And then after that, you don't make it a non-factor, because we know the championship is not going to be really defended, or anything much is going to be happening between after SummerSlam all the way to the end of the year. No, not until day one. Because after SummerSlam, anything involving the main event belts for Roman Reigns and what they're going to do with it, no, they're not. Nothing will be until day one. Pretty much solid. I think that's where we're going to have to be. Because then the true off-season is going to be here, and it hurts more that we're in the off-season and Cody Rhodes gets hurt. And this shuffling is not going to do any better, because nobody new is going to take that spot. It's going to be somebody established. A Drew McIntyre, a John Cena, a Randy Orton. The only guy that might be there is Riddle. But Riddle's on the odd side out. He's the dark horse. There's always got to be one of those. So, yeah, pretty much it. Well, either which way, Usos will have to defend against Street Profits in a weak fashion because even though it was a count-out win, Street Profits still get the chance to go after the belts. They won the match. Kind of crappy with it, see it that way, but, oh well. And that's right, Theory and Lashley are now the deal. Big, small. Okay, we can do something with that, too. I should have brought that up. That's what I meant to say earlier. As Theory now confronts Lashley, and that is a pretty interesting dynamic. But, hey, Lashley's being used for what he needs to be used for. And to see where big guy Lashley against a smaller Theory plays into the mix is an interesting dynamic. I like that. So I'm all into that. Veer Mahan? No, nothing. Now, as for the Judgment Day, let's talk about that real quick. Okay. I mean, Edge really set things up. Will Balor continue to follow the same track as Edge when it comes to Judgment Day? About the truth, about justice? Or is that going to change? Because I don't know what to think about where Finn Balor comes in. It was a very odd thing to go and see him become a new member. But then all of a sudden, the turn on the Edge by the entire faction in such a short amount of time. This is a storyline. This is a pretzel of a storyline they have to go in and untangle now. What are they going to do to untwist this whole thing that they just put themselves into? That explanation is going to be fun. But Finn Balor still has to be a standout leader. Edge is a leader. I don't see where Finn Balor is a leader. And listen, sure, you can talk about Bullet Club all you want, but that's a long time ago. And even then, it's a different story. It's not like where New Japan is putting out long-winded promos and we're doing this whole deal every week where they're just getting scheduled. It's supposed to all matches and somebody was leading the faction. But not in the sports entertainment realm. This is a different thing for Finn Balor. Not like he can't talk, but I don't see him being the lead of this whole Judgment Day thing either. And because of this switch, I hate to say that Finn Balor brings us a step down, and we might be getting closer to a Retribution than we are a Judgment Day or a Nexus. Because we need somebody to be the talker. And I think Edge was perfect for that. But they made the change, and I don't know if because Edge has to go do something else, he had to go make the switch because of Cody. So this wholesale change had to happen. It's all questions. But I'm not one of my fellow podcast brethren that's going to go and just start bashing away at this. I'm not doing that either. I don't need to. And so they're deciding to do this here. Okay, that's fine. And then, I'm not going to bring up Ezekiel and the whole deal with him and Alpha Academy and Kevin Owens and that continuous deal. It's just not significant to me. I'm just not going to bring it up. It's whatever. So that's a big problem. That is on the WWE side. The whole deal with Cody Rhodes. There's a whole lot to untangle here and where things go because Money in the Bank is important. SummerSlam is important. What are you going to do for those matches coming up? What are you going to do for those main cards coming up? What's going to be your main event now because it's all switched? And when you only rely on a couple of few choice people, how many times have I said that? How many times going to go back to a previous Wrestling Goes podcast? Every time this year, the off season, the lack of star power, the injuries that cause that limited star power to go away, whether it's for injury, whether it's for part timing, whether it's for whatever. This company will continue to just repeat the same cycle. I will give them credit. They are trying to build some stars now. But that process is slow. They are not the type of people that could just take a star and build them up overnight. They just haven't done it. And I don't think the company is capable of doing that right now. Not in that corporate giant that it is right now. Not in any way. They're not willing to take the risks. Meanwhile, AEW does. They've done a lot of things to set themselves up for that. Because I love what AEW is doing. They're set up for things because of where things are. Is a great move. So there's a whole lot happening now when it comes to CM Punk being injured and where everything is right now in that whole setup. So first off, CM Punk will require surgery. We knew about that over the weekend. Talked about it on Friday night. We talked about it on the post show. And that we learned afterwards that Punk is still the world champion, and an interim champion will be crowned at a Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And on Friday, we talked about how they were going to set that up. So we know that part's being done, and it will be crowned. The interim champion will be crowned at Forbidden Door. And first of all, they had a battle royal to determine who faces Jon Moxley in the Dynamite main event. And the winner of Dynamite's main event would go on to Forbidden Door. Well, that was Kyle O'Reilly and Jon Moxley, and Moxley won. And there you go. So Jon Moxley will go into Forbidden Door, going after the interim AEW World Championship, and he will be going up against. And let me just make clear, at New Japan Pro Wrestling show coming up this Friday, he will take on the winner of Hiroshi Tanahashi and Hiroki Goto, which will be happening in New Japan Pro Wrestling's Dominion show. That is this Sunday. And so by next Dynamite, we'll know with 2 weeks ahead who Moxley's opponent is for the AEW Interim Championship. And besides that, we go into the night of Dynamite and what they've been doing to kind of work things out, because they have Forbidden Door coming up in a couple of weeks. They got to set that up. So they got things going. They did the Casino Battle Royal to start things off, to determine who's going to go into that match at Forbidden Door to set up the interim title match. And then an incredible thing they did where we now have a new championship belt in AEW, the All-Atlantic Championship. I love it. So this is what could be even more of an intercontinental title for them, because it goes across various countries. They don't want to make it where it's just to one. So intercontinental title, this is what this is. Because TNT title is like a TV championship, but very prestigious. But the All-Atlantic Championship, I feel like it's like Intercontinental and European Championship, but better defined and much more where you have a lot of these stars where they have a lot of international talent. And they were able to set up an 8-man tournament to determine who will be the new champion, who will be crowned at Forbidden Door. So you got that going for you. Also, a very nice belt. I like the belt a lot. So they talked about on Dynamite. They started with the first match with Pac taking on Buddy Matthews. And then the other matches in the brackets, Ethan Page and Miro, Penta Oscuro and Malachi Black. And there'll be 2 competitors from New Japan Pro Wrestling, which I guess they'll be considered a Dominion coming up, because they need a couple New Japan stars because of Forbidden Door. So you got that going for you. But I like that move too. And in the match, Pac wins. And then we had David Finlay, who's been part of Finn Juice, but he gets to go and join in here on the action, taking on Adam Page in a very good match. And Adam Page, after the match, says he has a lot to say about the AEW World title, but tonight's not the night. And that's why he wasn't in the Battle Royal. He won't get a chance soon. But he wants to go after Okada for the New Japan Pro Wrestling Championship, the IWGP World Heavyweight title, Kazuchika Okada at Forbidden Door. Damn. But we don't know what's going to happen yet, because Adam Cole interrupts and says because that Hangman lost the AEW World title and he won the Owen Hart title, that if anyone deserves a chance, it's him. And Cole says that Page time has come and gone, and AEW is all about him. So I guess Cole and Page have to face each other again to determine if one of those is going to be number one contender for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. I love it. I mean, that's a good match. Come on. Adam Page against Okada? Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Jon Moxley against like Hiroshi Tanahashi? Oh, yeah, Bobby. Count me in. Count me in. Those 2 matches are just tremendous. And then you get your All-Atlantic Championship match The crowning of the All-Atlantic Champion. Love that too. Wardlow now wants to go after the TNT title. They put that set up. And look, MJF's no longer in the picture because they're now playing storyline. And without MJF, Wardlow fits in a nice little spot right now into that TNT title picture. I love it. I mean, look at what they're doing right now. Adam Page is still such a strong star. They're making him into something important right now. The All-Atlantic Championship really now encompasses a lot of stars, quite a few WWE guys, that now have something prestigious to go after. That's really important because when you're looking at what they have here, the stars are picking in. I mean, except for Penta Oscuro. Still, Ethan Page, Miro, Penta Oscuro, Malachi Black, plus Pac and Buddy Matthews, all these international stars, you give them a reason to be all in this. And I actually was surprised it was this title because I almost thought they were going to go trios, but no, this is great. And I think it's another thing, too, where this title can be defended overseas. If any of these stars go across overseas to defend the belt. So it might not be defended all the time on television. And that's okay, too. But I like all that. Thunder Rosa had another opponent with Marina Shafir for the AEW Women's title, but we know that there was a little bit of heat after the fact. And that Thunder Rosa, with the win, Toni Storm comes out post-match, and we can see Toni Storm and Thunder Rosa. That'll be a match coming up down the line. Probably it all in, right? Or all out. All out. That's what it was. And then we know about Jon Moxley. That's the way the whole setup for the matches tonight on the show was great. Perfect. So they have plans. Interim title, you have the New Japan talent being used to create an interim championship, and I'm guessing Moxley would win. I mean, I don't see where Tanahashi's going to be coming in here for a particular amount of time on talent exchange to work AEW. I don't know. They can do it. I'm kind of surprised they do, but I'd like to see how they're going to work that out. And then the IWGP title on the next pay-per-view, too, for Forbidden Door. That's great. 3 title matches so far. And then you got to worry about the fact you're going to have another Battle of the Belts. You could do something where Toni Storm and Thunder Rosa could be having the women's title at that pay-per-view. And we don't know what they're going to do yet with the TBS title, or if it's going to be Athena and Jade Cargill coming up down the line. The TNT title, we already know it's going to be Wardle now trying to go after Scorpio Sky. Like, that's all great stuff. But there are a plethora of talent. And there's other guys they're not even talking about in the mix that can be brought up into the mix right now of titles. But I think this new title really does take care of the rest of giving people on the roster something to go after, something that is a prestigious title. There are enough titles now in the company to really take care of that roster, to give some importance of the rankings of all those stars and what they're going to be doing. Because we know with that All-Atlantic Championship, you're taking care of the Mexican wrestlers. So if you want to take care of Rush or Andrade or Rey Fenix, you got all that there. You're talking about England. I mean, you got that there with Pac. You got that there with Buddy Matthews in Australia. You got Canada when you got Ethan Page. And there's just so many other people you could just think about where they have so much talent that can be used for all these belts. And that's AEW's plan. They got lots of belts to use. And they got lots of feuds to work on. They have a good thing going. I mean, they haven't given us anything more from last week about MJF. We have to see what that feature feud's going to be. We also know that we have the dealings with the tag team titles with the Hardys and Young Bucks wanting to go after Jurassic Express. We got that going for us. Look at all these things that are going on. It's so much going on to cover into Dynamite and Rampage and Forbidden Door coming up and Battle of the Belts coming up in August and like so many other things they got going on. They're just loaded with things going on. All the way up to All Out. Loaded. Difference between both brands when you look at it. That's the point I wanted to make of contention of how things are handled and how much different it is for everybody else. And I don't know what they do at this point. But that's a lot to work out. Another injury we talked about CM Punk Well, Bryan Danielson also has been in that same vein where he's also out for injury. Another important star that's going to be missed in the mix. Now, over the weekend, he missed a meet and greet and was not at Dynamite in Los Angeles last Wednesday. Brian Alvarez with F4W Online confirmed with two sources Danielson was hurt in the Anarchy in the arena match. It doesn't look to be anything serious, but he'll be taken out for a couple of weeks. And also there was a rumor that he might have suffered a concussion. But that Danielson should be cleared with plenty of time to be there for Forbidden Door. But he's off for a little bit. And Blackpool Combat Club had to go and kind of do things without. You have that. And then Adam Cole apparently being injured too. Now, there hasn't been much said about that so far, but Adam Cole also being stuck in the same mix. And with him, he was pulled from a 10-man tag team match on Dynamite. Same thing with Jeff Hardy. Cole was not in the Casino Battle Royal. But he should be back in time for Forbidden Door. Well, we did see him. And with Brian Alvarez, he says that probably no Cole until Forbidden Door. They're going to both be rested in the meantime. But Adam Cole's still being part of the mix. I don't know if that means that Cole's not as bad as he once thought was. So we don't know yet. And then the other name we have that has been thought about, when you look at everything that's going on with this company, we're not even talking about anything when it comes to one of the biggest names that has been out for a while in AEW. The damn world champion for over a year, Kenny Omega. We haven't heard a thing from him. Well, there was some information that was talked about him last. His last match was when he dropped the AEW World title to Hangman Adam Page at Full Gear last November. In March, he was recovering from arthroscopic knee surgery and scheduled for surgery to repair a sports hernia at the end of that month. And the recovery was scheduled to be 10 weeks while recovering from the hernia surgery, about 2 months. And then some recent video just came out that showed off his plasma treatment to help with joint, muscle, and tendon pains. And he had injections into his shoulder and his knee. He's been backstage at recent TV events, but found it too early in the healing process to travel with injuries. And at one point, Omega had hoped to be back in television in February, but that didn't happen. There's no timetable on his return. So he is back there for a while. We won't see him. And maybe not for a while. To me, if he needs all the time he needs, that's fine. I don't need to see him until as early as Full Gear or wait until next year for Revolution. I mean, there's no hurry for this guy to get back. He's important, but he's also, he's not a spring chicken either. He's in the prime of his career. If he can get back, that would be great. But with the time needed for him to properly heal. So there you go. There's a lot of injuries right there. But with AEW, that limited schedule they have, the fact they have so many people on the roster that can be relied on, that are just solid talent. I mean, look at how easily that All-Atlantic title tournament was filled in no time. Look at how easily the Owen Hart tournament finals were filled in that time. This is what AEW does. This is what Tony Khan has been a genius at. I'm going to say it time and time again, and I know people might not like to hear that, but it's true. Fact of life. So I like it all. So I'm going to talk about just a couple other things because we do have shows coming up. Well, we got one show I haven't talked about yet, which is important. The 20th anniversary of Impact Wrestling and their annual Slammiversary show. You already have 4 matches scheduled for the night. Great stuff so far. Queen of the Mountain will be held for the first time. No King of the Mountain match, but they're bringing back the Mountain match. Queen of the Mountain for the Knockouts title. Tasha Steelz will defend against Deonna Purrazzo. Chelsea Green, Mia Yim, and Jordan Grace. That's a hell of a match. Very good stuff. Briscoes against the Good Brothers for the Impact Tag Team titles. This is where the Briscoes, as champions, should continue to reign. I mean, the Briscoes have been good, but seeing them here and seeing them in the NWA, it is a bit bittersweet to see them here and not in Ring of Honor, where they've been for so long. And for Briscoes to kind of just, keep the same identity, and they're not part of that perennial lifer Ring of Honor brand. I mean, it's not their fault. That's just how things happen. But it was good to see the Briscoes finally have these belts now, and we move along. Ultimate X for the Impact X Division Championship. So they're putting all the big belts on the line here. They're putting some matches up. Ace Austin will defend against Kenny King, Speedball, Mike Bailey, Trey Miguel, and 2 more names yet to be determined, yet to be announced. And Josh Alexander will take on Eric Young for the Impact World title. So that's a pretty good show. Kind of surprised Eric Young was being brought into the mix to go after Josh Alexander. We still don't know anything about what's going to go on with Sami Callihan, with Moose. Now, nothing's been said about those two yet. We know there's supposed to be some match now, and that wasn't put on here, but Team Impact will take on Honor No More. I know there's another one of those multi-tag matches again. We'll have that coming up, too. So I think they got a pretty good card coming up. They're not hurting right now. Impact Wrestling's been pretty consistent right now. And, you know, the ratings have kind of reflected as such. I mean, they're not doing what NXT's doing right now, which NXT, some shows might not be doing so well, but they did get over 600,000 viewers again, which is good for them. But at the moment, when it comes to where things are with Impact Wrestling, we're starting to see the ratings now, and that's okay. Impact Wrestling's been pretty consistent. Going from April all the way down into May, you're able to see their numbers have been over 100,000 viewers consistently since after Revolution. With Honor No More and with all the other stars they brought in, they've had some pretty good numbers. So the Ring of Honor stars coming into the fold have made a great benefit for that brand so far. So surprising, but I like it. Plus, I think what you got to take too, and I'm just going to say it because it's true, there's a big difference when you have Tom Hannafin doing commentary and Matthew Raywald. I think those guys have been working great together. That's working. Tom Hannafin is the right announcer at Impact Wrestling, and I think that makes all the difference in the world because you got a guy that really knows how to call matches. He's great. He fits this role so well. He knows this roster so well because he watched. He was a fan. Great for him. So much better to hear them on commentary and how much better it is overall to see what they're doing. So anyway, that's it. That's the show tonight. Like I said, I already did a post show on Sunday, and I'm not going to stretch any more of what I have tonight. This is it. But I appreciate all of you listening to the show. Make sure to rate and review the show. If you haven't done so, please do rate and review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Make sure to give me a big 5-star rating if you love the show. Wherever you are, I know I got a lot of listeners that are in India and Canada and UK, and love you guys. Thank you for listening in. All of you. I'd love to shout you out as well. Feel free to go and reach out to me, kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com, or look for me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. I'm at all those places. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me there. Main website is kingofpodcasts.com for all my production work. All that's there for you. So I hope you'll consider doing that. Meantime, we'll keep an eye on what's going on with wrestling, and we'll come back with another Wrestling Is Real podcast next week because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.